Welcome everyone from wherever you're watching. I'm Helen Hudson, President of the League of Women Voters, and you have tuned in to a virtual Lunch with the League, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County, Indiana. The League of Women Voters is a 100-year-old nonpartisan organization whose mission it is to promote civic involvement in government by registering people to vote, by providing programming to inform citizens and residents about vital issues of concern to us all. If you'd like to get involved, please visit our website or our Facebook page. There are league chapters in every state, in every territory around the country. We, along with the NAACP, are the biggest volunteer organization with the biggest reach in the country. The work of League means usually that we are looking forward, getting information to people about the upcoming election, making sure all our candidates have a forum where voters can learn their positions, registering high school seniors, and so forth. All of that is going forward as I speak. But for this month's Lunch with the League, taking place just after the centennial celebration on August 26th, when the 19th Amendment to the US Constitution was adopted into the Constitution, we've decided to look back and honor those who have gone before. Specifically in this case, a tribute to Montgomery County's pioneer woman physician, Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite, Indiana's first licensed female physician, and I'm proud to say, a nationally noted suffragist. To honor this centennial, the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County, in this year of the pandemic, has produced a book and a film to honor Dr. Wilhite and her legacy. It is my pleasure to introduce to you this evening the author of the just published Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite, Ms. Shannon Sullivan Hudson. It is also my pleasure to introduce you to another author, Ms. Stephanie Kane, fantasy writer and historian, who will begin our program by asking Shannon a few questions about her book. I would like to note too that it was Stephanie who made possible the production of this beautiful little book that you may get at the Lew Wallace Museum gift shop, at the Carnegie Museum gift shop in a few days. But right now you can order it on Amazon for a ridiculously low price, as you will see. It is also, again, thanks to Stephanie, available as an ebook on Kindle. That said, let me turn this over to you, Stephanie and Shannon. I think, Stephanie, you've got a couple questions to ask our author of the evening.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Stephanie.
It's nice to see your face.
It's nice to see you again.
I've really enjoyed working on this book. Of course, I did a lot of formatting on it. I didn't necessarily, I confess, read it cover to cover yet, but I'm fascinated by what I have read about Mary Holloway Wilhite, and she sounds like she's quite the Renaissance woman. Do you think that's a fair label for her?
I do. The more that I researched about her, the more fascinated I became by what she did in a time period where it wasn't exactly kosher for a woman to be so involved and bullheaded to a point. She married late in life. She became a doctor. She raised 4 children who were very diverse. She was incredibly involved in women's suffrage, the 1880 convention. And I really honestly, in my heart, don't think she cared what the men thought about her. She developed the orphans' home with men's help, with other women as well. But I think she was just a force of nature and well ahead of her time.
You almost had to be a force of nature to accomplish such professional things like that as a woman at that time, I think, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you figure in 1831, there was a code of ethics. That was the year she was born. There was a code of ethics that was printed and widely dispersed about women's roles in the home and their roles in society, or lack thereof. And I truly think that Mary Holloway Wilhite broke every single one of those rules. And I don't think she cared.
Well, she certainly had a very large impact, not just here in Montgomery County, but really it sounds like nationwide. Was there opposition from the local community to the idea about a girl thinking she could be a doctor?
No. Oh, yeah. Um, in her letters and writings that her granddaughter published sometime after her death, she made it very clear that there was a conversation she had with a Crawfordsville native. It was a gentleman who said, "Really, you want to be a doctor?" And Mary said, "Well, yeah." And his comment was, "I would rather my daughter be dead than be who you are."
Whew.
And Mary said, "Well, we'll see how that goes." And as it turned out, ironically, the family called upon Dr. Mary Wilhite to help a family member and retained her services.
So she did make him kind of eat his words, huh?
Pretty much. I think I don't know that she said "I told you so," because I don't think that was her way, but I do think that she may have been a little nervous walking into that home, knowing who the gentleman was and knowing what their conversation had been.
Huh. Wow. So I know she set out to become a doctor, 1854. And do we know how she made the trip from Crawfordsville to Philadelphia, where she actually went to medical school? Do we know how that came about?
We do. We know a little bit about it. Again, it was from the letters, some of the letters that her granddaughter published. She boarded a train. Of course, she had to have an escort. All we know about the escort, her name was Mrs. Purcell. They boarded the train, and as they were passing through one of the towns, one of the gentlemen recognized her and stared her down with a nice icy cold stare,
Oh,
which of course Dr. Holloway took, or well, at that point she was Ms. Holloway, took as a not accepting view of what she wanted to be. The train, they switched a couple times. They had to stop when the train ran into some horses and scattered pieces and parts across the area.
oh my.
Mary made it clear she only had a chance to eat once. Then when she arrived, her first job was to find a boarding house because her family was not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination. They were very well known in town, especially with bringing the first Christian church to town and forming that. But yeah, that was her job. First job, getting off that train
Wow.
after eating once and being on a train for many hours. So it was quite an adventure.
Yeah, sounds exhausting. Quite frankly, even to do that today, let alone what the trains were like at that period in time. So she became a noted doctor, but also a community activist, a suffrage activist. Do you think that her suffrage and her community activity, do you think that came out of her medical profession?
I do. I think, just again, from what we know about her father more so than her mother, but her father was very community minded, and I think the family was raised with the community service idea in mind. I think her passion came from her very soul, because her activities in the community often involve the poor, the often forgotten individuals, such as the orphans. She was instrumental in building the orphans home here in town when she saw the deplorable conditions that the children were living in at the poor farm, as they called it at that point. But I think when she was in her medical residency, we know that she worked with women and children then. So
Okay.
I think it was something that was from her very soul. And when she got here, she just kept right on going. She never refused a patient. She was often not paid for her work. And I really don't think that bothered her. We know that a couple of the papers she wrote, she suggested that treatment for some diseases might be better treated not necessarily with medicine, but homeopathic methods that
Wow.
were far more successful on the frontier at that time. Indiana was the frontier, believe it or not. And Crawfordsville is very progressive. So I think she fit right in. The Wabash, she was, of course, very close to Wabash. She lived right across the street.
Mhm.
So I think that may have had some influence. But she, up until her dying day, she was helping other people. And that's not something that you learn. I think that was inborn.
She sounds so incredibly impressive. I think there's so much we could learn from her life. I know that some of the things that she said when she wrote letters to the paper and gave speeches were a little bit radical. Oh, definitely a lot radical for her time, but a little bit radical possibly even in today's world. Um, all she really wanted was for people to realize that, hey, women are equal and should have equal rights. But um, are there things that she said that really impressed you as a 21st century woman?
Um, yes. And somehow I fear for her safety back then, because she really was a very radical thinker and writer. Her idea was that women should be held equal to men. Yes, we come from different viewpoints and different thinkings, but if women are being governed by these laws, we need to have a say in their creation and their dissemination. There was a fabulous letter that she wrote right around the time of the 1880 convention. It was extremely lengthy, but the bottom line was, you need to free women to free yourself and to free our country and to bring us up to the standards to which we should be expected to be held. And she was very instrumental in the 1880 convention that came here. She hosted some of the national suffragists in her home, which I just think that's the coolest thing. I mean, Elizabeth Cady Stanton was here in Crawfordsville, and I walk by that almost every weekend where she sat.
Mhm.
So yeah, she was there. One of my favorite passages in this article that she wrote was, a man's financial woes are often the man's problem because he never consults his woman. He never consults women or his wife. There's a passage she states that, here a man comes home and he's made this financial decision and he hands the paper to his wife and says, here, dear, sign it. The woman never has the right to ask questions as what the paper's all about. She's just supposed to sign it. I wonder where the impetus came for this. I don't know if she had a friend that happened to, and then
Mhm.
the family was financially ruined. Knowing what I do about her husband, I don't think her husband would have ever done that. He was a very, very progressive minded individual, 11 years older than her, a famous tailor in town. And I believe in my heart, he supported her 100%. So I don't think it came from her background, but something had happened. Somebody had said something, or she witnessed the ruination of a family because a man made a decision and didn't consult his wife. So that really speaks to me, because my husband and I have that relationship. Every single decision we make together. And I can't imagine not being consulted. Here it is, 2020, and there are still some women who that happens to.
Mhm.
I wouldn't last very long in that kind of relationship. Just like, my parents have been married almost 60 years, and
Wow.
to this day they consult each other on every single decision.
Mhm.
And my heart breaks for these women that don't have that kind of situation. So I think Mary was speaking from her heart, from experience, from things that she had heard and seen. And the letter is actually published as one of the appendices in the book. It had no paragraph breaks until Dr. Hudson got a hold of it. It was one giant thing. Of course, it was in the newspaper. But yeah, I think I believe the quote on the front of the book really pretty much says it all. Wouldn't it be nice if women could populate all of politics and offices of politics at some level?
It literally says, I fail to see the harm that could result if all the offices from president down to coroner were filled by women.
I'd like to see that happen. That sounds good to me.
Sorry, Marco.
You guys have had your time.
I'm in full agreement.
So Shannon, what was your process? Where did you go to get the information for writing this book about this fascinating woman?
Wasn't my idea. I cannot take credit for really about 3/4 of this. I'm on the 100th anniversary committee from League of Women Voters. Gail Pebworth and Helen Hudson found me. I don't know how, but I was humbled and honored to be part of that committee. And we started meeting, oh, Helen, what, a year and a half ago, probably?
Probably, yeah.
And as we progressed, of course, we had great plans until the world turned upside down in March. One of the things that we had planned originally to do and will still do is create a book on the entire history of the League of Women Voters. And that has turned into a lengthy, the things that this league has been involved in, it's extensive considering it just started in 1947. So we're building that, and then Shelby Hoover and Nick Hedrick and you created the legendary league or the legend of the legendary league of Montgomery County. So it stemmed from that, and then Gail Pebworth went to a conference and brought a book back, and it went from there. Diane Moore had done a tremendous amount of research and as did Karen Zock. So there was already that information there. And then I went to the indomitable Deli Craig at the library. And if there is anything that can be, if it exists, she knows where it is. And even during COVID, when the library was on restricted hours, that amazing woman opened. She was one of the first ones to call me and say, hey, we've got appointments. Are you ready? Because I had all this planned to be done around the end of August. Well, and that just didn't happen. So we decided with this marker that we would just create maybe an 8 to 10 page pamphlet. I've been to many historical marker dedications, and that's what we decided to do, and then it just exploded from there.
Shannon, you might mention the historical marker. I think our audience that's listening tonight might not know that that exists.
Absolutely. Her home was originally at the corner of Wabash and Grant. The home is now gone, and I believe it's Wabash property. They have a couple colonnades there. Originally on August 26th, 2020, we had planned on her marker dedication. Diane Moore, again, was hugely instrumental, as was Beth Swift over at Wabash College, in putting all that information together. And the marker is here. But with the situation as it is, we just did not feel that, for safety's sake, it would be a good idea at this point to dedicate it. And plus, Wabash, they've got their hands full as well. So we decided that we are going to postpone this until a time where we feel safe doing it. But Diane Moore just wrote a beautiful application for it. So once it's ready, we'll get it up. And I am not making any money from this. All the proceeds will go directly to the marker. So that's where we started. We started with Diane Moore, and it just blossomed from there. We got a wonderful, very generous grant from the Montgomery County Community Foundation. And that we went to the ceremony, and I didn't even want to touch the check. I made Helen take it home. But that was able to finance the things that we needed. And I guess, Stephanie, I'm not you as an author is concerned. I am the history nerd. I will go, because to me, truth is often stranger than fiction. So as we began to research, we found out more and more and more, and we learned more about her children. And I dug deep into the Hoosier Chronicles that Sean Leidy, I believe.
Chandler
Has-
lady, yeah.
He has put tremendous work into that,
Yeah.
and just wow, the more I began to go into those, the more we found of her and her children, and it just turned into what you created. And Shelby did the cover. You put this on Amazon print on demand because I don't know how to do that, and it turned into a lot bigger project than what we thought, for which I am unbelievably grateful. I just find this woman, I find her fascinating. And I truly would like to hope that had I been a woman at that age, I would have jumped on her bandwagon. You never know until you're in that situation. But the way I was always raised as a female in the 60s and 70s, that I could do whatever I wanted. But even in the 80s and the 90s, there was still opposition to women being in some fields and men being in some fields. It's not just a one-way street, and that has always bothered me. So I'm honored and humbled that I had the chance to do this. I certainly was unbelievably grateful that Doc Hudson edited my document. My son Tyler had Helen in class, and when he found out that Doc Hudson was going to edit my paper, he laughed. He said, "Oh, Mom." Well, I know what she did to his paper because he didn't put as much effort into it he was supposed to. So I was a little more grateful that it wasn't totally abused, but Helen did a fabulous job editing it. Tina Osborne did a wonderful job helping. The committee was wonderful. So again, this was not my idea. I was just a part of the process.
Wow. Everything just really came together beautifully for this. So I have to ask, just to satisfy my own personal curiosity, I'm a big fan of Lou Wallace since I work at the General Lou Wallace Study and Museum. I know that she had a little bit of an encounter with Lou. I'm also curious because Lou's stepmother, Zerelda Wallace, was such a huge suffrage activist. Can you tell me about their connections, their interactions?
Contentious. During the 1880 convention, Lou Wallace was asked to speak, and I actually got that, Stephanie, from your book, from the Lou Wallace, the thing on Zerelda, the book on Zerelda, which I highly recommend to anyone. It's a fabulous read. Lou, for some reason, did not follow in his stepmother's footsteps nearly as well as I would have expected. Lou was a very complicated man.
Oh, yes,
he really was. When I was writing on him, when I did my Underground Railroad book, he was very black and white. And if it didn't follow the law, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, he wanted no part of it.
Oh, yeah.
So originally, when he was asked to speak at the 1880 Women's Suffrage Convention here in Crawfordsville, he said, "Oh, no, I'm going to be out of town." Well, he wasn't out of town, and he attended.
And we kind of wish he had been out of town.
I think he probably, looking back, probably thought that would have been a pretty good idea. He should have bailed when the bailing was good. But he and Ryland Brown were two of the gentlemen. There were others as well that spoke. And Ryland Brown, even though he was a bit more open-minded, I think, than Lou, even Ryland Brown had some very stoic ideas about women and the right to vote. I think they both felt that at some level women could make decisions, but should they be given the right to vote? I know Lou Wallace was not in favor of the women getting the vote. And during the convention, he and Mary Livermore went toe-to-toe. And I think he and Mary had some words. And Mary had wonderful comebacks to every comment that Lou made. Lou chose, rather than to speak on women's suffrage, he chose to speak on the new divorce laws that had just been passed in Indiana. The crowd was not amused by that choice, and it did not go well. So I think Mary Livermore pretty much chewed him up and spit him out. And then you have Mary Hannah Kraut went toe-to-toe with General Lou Wallace. It did not go well for Lou.
Well, that's actually probably good for him. He had so much wealth and so much influence, and so much success. Sometimes people like that need to be told no a couple times.
Oh, he was. There's no question.
Yeah.
And the papers followed every word of it. We even found that an author, or a gentleman in Chicago who wrote for one of the Chicago papers, covered it.
Wow.
And the ladies in charge of the column in our newspaper that followed the women's suffrage convention ripped this guy to shreds, this reporter from
Wow.
Chicago. They held nothing back.
Wow.
So,
Well, even the best of heroes are still human, right? And
yes.
we see that in Mary, her humanity really gave her a lot of compassion for other people. I greatly admire her, and I'm so glad that you did all this work, because I can't wait to actually sit down and really read all the words instead of just formatting them. Do you have any parting thoughts that you would like to share with people?
Support the Mary Holloway Wilhite Marker Project. I think that would be the greatest honor to her. Although I think, were she here now with us, she would say, I don't need that. I don't need that. But indeed she does. I prefer to write historical things because, again, I think truth is stranger than fiction, and you can't write a story like Mary Holloway Wilhite. And my job was just to bring her to life, to give her some humanity, because so often these people, they're forgotten. A historical marker will do justice to her, but I hope people choose instead to emulate who she was and what she tried to do for our town, rather than just read the book. Yeah, that may be a start, but maybe we can bring a little bit of humanity to Crawfordsville,
Mhm.
if not a little farther, by just following who she was as a human being.
Thank you so much for sharing
Thank you,
your time with
Stephanie,
us.
and thank you, Helen, and thank you,
Yes.
Marco, and the anniversary committee, and Diane Moore, and Beth Swift, and Deli Craig, and the Montgomery County Community Foundation. If it weren't for all of you, this wouldn't have happened.
Well,
I'm glad
thank
it
you
did.
both so very much. This was a fascinating little conversation here. And we really, really appreciate you both giving your time. And I think Shannon undersold herself a bit as an author in this interview. An author does a heck of a lot of work, as you both know, to get a manuscript together. And we appreciate so much what both of you give to our community, and are so grateful to have you both as League of Women Voter of Montgomery County members. So thank you and good night. And we will move on to the second part of our program,
Thank you,
which
ladies.
is,
Thank you.
Thanks.
for the second half of our program, we present to you a short film in which medical women of Montgomery County in our own time speak to you about their careers taking place in this century, over 150 years after Dr. Wilhite practiced medicine in our town as the first licensed female physician in Indiana. It will begin, as you will shortly hear, with a historical piece about a famed African-American podiatrist who served our community. We'll then hear from a couple of long-serving women medical practitioners. Then we'll see brief video clips from 15 medical women who not so long ago were schoolgirls, just like Mary Holloway Wilhite was once upon a time here in Montgomery County. I'd like to introduce you formally now to Marco Dees, who produced this film, and thank him for all the time, talent, and patience this project took. Thank you so much for joining us for another installment of Lunch with the League, sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County, Indiana.
I'm Elizabeth Justice, an attorney and a member of the League of Women Voters of Montgomery County, Indiana. Here for Women's Equality Day on August 26, 2020, I am proud to introduce you to the League's projects honoring the career and legacy of Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite, Indiana's first professionally trained and licensed female physician. She was born and raised in Montgomery County and practiced medicine here for 36 years, between 1856 and 1892. Dr. Wilhite was also an important suffragist who used her voice and her medical skills to build a better community. Montgomery County has, at last, been chosen to receive an official Indiana state historical marker from the Indiana Historical Society dedicated to her achievements. That marker will soon be installed on the site where her home and medical office were located at the corner of South Grant Street and West Wabash Avenue in Crawfordsville. Originally, the League created and planned this as an in-person event before COVID-19 changed our plans. We had hoped to have a gathering of women medical practitioners from our community at the site as a visual demonstration of how women today contribute to the medical field in our community. That would have been a beautiful image of the growth of women's career prospects in the 100 years following the passage of the 19th Amendment. However, due to the current pandemic, we chose to honor Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite's legacy with a book and a film. First, the book. Educator and League of Women Voters member Shannon Hudson has researched and written a book about Dr. Wilhite and her time. This illustrated and lively story of a powerful life is being shipped from the publisher as I speak to you. By the end of the month, you will be able to order the book online through Amazon or attain it locally from the Carnegie and Lew Wallace Museums. Let me show you a picture of the cover of the book. It shows Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite. She's shown with suffragist roses. In addition, this evening, it's my pleasure to bring you a small film we have created. We felt that the best way to honor Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite's legacy was by asking other women in the medical arts in Montgomery County to tell us in a short video about their careers. Before professionally trained doctors were commonly available, women cared for the sick. Midwives have helped deliver babies from time immemorial and continue to do so. Not all women in the 19th, 20th, or 21st centuries who provided health care were medical doctors. Some had only lay training and experience. We began our legacy review with an African-American woman named Blanche Patterson, who worked as a podiatrist in the early 20th century. Her office was located in the Ben-Hur building in Crawfordsville. League member and local historian Vicki Hudson Swisher provides the video describing Ms. Patterson's role in our community. After that, we have two short videos from women who have practiced medicine in our county for decades. Dermatologist Dr. Linda Vogt Spencer and pediatric dentist Terry A. Wynn. Finally, the centerpiece of this project is a series of 15 video clips featuring a cavalcade of Montgomery County girls who, like Mary Holloway Wilhite, grew up here and went away to study medicine. These professional women are practicing in a wide range of medical disciplines around the country, as you will hear. We are aware that since Dr. Wilhite's time, many other local women, both those who grew up here and those who practiced here, have been professionally trained and licensed in dentistry, nursing, audiology, veterinary medicine, and other medical fields. Some of those women include Dr. Linda Tagg, Dr. Janet Rucker, Dr. Sharon Odell Keaty, Dr. Anita Joshi, Dr. Elizabeth Colonna, Dr. Mary Glass, and many more. All of them, whether named here in this project or not, are worthy of recognition. Please consider this video collection to be just a sampling of a few of our notable women. From among these, another medical pioneer deserves special mention. Mary Grace Del Torto, who grew up in New York, graduated from medical school at the University of Virginia, married, and became known as Dr. Mary Ludwig when she moved here in 1958 to practice medicine. Like Dr. Wilhite, she also faced discrimination. She also cared for those neglected by others. Today, her name graces our free medical clinic. Beside her, for many decades, worked capable registered nurses, including Michelle Thompson and Christine Amadon, in what was known as the Well Baby Clinic and the Christian Nursing Service. Today in this film, we honor all women who practice healthcare here and those who grew up here and are practicing medicine elsewhere. Too often, the monumental achievements of women have been overlooked or lost to history. We see this as an opportunity to highlight the courageous medical career and public work of suffragist Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite, with the hope that her example and the examples of the women you are about to see will serve as a beacon for others. Now it is my pleasure to give you Vicki Hudson Swisher speaking about Blanche Patterson.
Good day. My name is Victoria Elaine Hyde Elmore Hudson Swisher. I'm the local historian on Black history here in Montgomery County, Crawfordsville, Indiana. Today I'm going to speak to you about Blanche Patterson. How do I describe Blanche Patterson? Truly a woman of color, born before her time, they say, but others think right on time. She was born in the first generation of non-slave Black Americans, so there were no set rules. She was born in 1884. The granddaughter of the mother of AME Church and its first pastor, she had a very religious upbringing. First being taught at the AME Church School, and then the newly finished Lincoln School for Colored Children. She went on to graduate from the local Crawfordsville High School, which was integrated, and then attended Wilberforce College, a colored college in Wilberforce, Ohio, affiliated with the AME Church Conference. Most pastors' sons attended, and she was one of the first women to graduate from there. After graduation, she joined a traveling minstrel show as part of the Jubilee gospel part of the program. You see, Blanche was an accomplished musician. Her music teacher at the Lincoln School was Mr. Paris, who had run a minstrel show at one time and had many connections. His sons also were accomplished musicians and went on to become world-renowned jazz artists, who sadly were segregated when they visited home to Crawfordsville. Blanche and her sisters would hold musicales at the local opera house for fundraisers for the local AME church and her colored improvement societies and NAACP members. In 1922, Blanche, unmarried, decided to open her own business with a couple of friends. She opened a beauty shop at first with a couple of church friends, the 3 Bs they called them: Bertha, Blanche, and Bernice. Blanche also studied the medical field by interning under Dr. Anthony, the principal of the Lincoln School, who at one time was going to open a colored hospital, since the local Culver Hospital was segregated at the time. Miss Blanche would mostly see white patients in her Ben Hill building office. Her colored patients she would have see, and poor patients she would see in the clinic, located over where she lived, in the east end of town. Her colored patients would mostly go to her for small broken bones or something like that, but for any medicinal thing, they would prefer to go to the local midwife with their home remedies, not trusting the local colored doctor. I was recently approached by an older white lady at the Lane Place, and it was during the holidays, and she related how when she was a little girl, her mother was seen by Blanche Patterson, and how she always remembered the softness of Blanche Patterson's hands, and she always had a kind word for her. Miss Patterson was a respected member of the community by both Black and white citizens. I do believe she was the most well-off of the Black women, of the women of color locally. And my mother remembers, and my cousin and her cousin remember going trick-or-treating as kids, especially going by Miss Patterson's house because she had the best treats. And she would always invite the children in and inquire about their parents and how they were doing. and encourage them to stay in school and get an education. She spent her life taking care of others. And on her way, but sadly, on her way to take care of some friends in Jasper, she died from injuries from a car accident at the age of 80. She was mourned by all who knew her. There's more to the Blanche Patterson story, as I recently discovered her diary from 1922 in talking about how she was going to set up her business, some notes about how to do different processes of taking care of white women's hair, dyeing it, and that kind of thing. Very interesting. And her notes from when she was studying for her boards to become a physician. So stay tuned while we explore deep, and I really want to explore her time as on the road with the minstrel show to see, what that was like. And perhaps answer them is why she never married. Was it a class thing because she was well off and educated and her folks thought nobody was good enough? We shall see. It'd be interesting trying to figure that mystery out. Have a good day.
Hi, this is Dr. Terry Wynn, and I'm a pediatric dentist here in Montgomery County and very honored to be asked to participate in this program. I grew up on a farm in Montgomery County and helped with all the veterinary care of the animals on the farm, and that's how I became interested in healthcare. I knew from a really early age that I was going to be a doctor of some kind. I earned my undergraduate degree at IU Bloomington in medical technology, and then I attended IU School of Dentistry in Indianapolis for my doctorate degree. And then after that, I went to the University of Kentucky in Lexington for my postdoctoral residency in pediatrics. Both of my parents encouraged all three of their daughters to be independent and educated, as highly educated as we could be, in a time period where the expectation was marriage for girls. So I'm really, really happy that they pushed me, and because I love my career. I still get up every day all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and just excited to come to work to make kids healthy. The people in Montgomery County have just been wonderful and supportive for me and my staff for the 30 years that I've been practicing. So I want to thank you, Dr. Wilhite, for paving the way for women in healthcare 100 years ago. Thank you so much.
Hello, I'm Dr. Linda Spencer. In 1989, I opened the first dermatology practice in Montgomery County, and I've been asked to talk about the path that led me here. While in high school, in a suburb north of Chicago, I knew that I wanted to work in medicine, but it never occurred to me to be a doctor. Our local hospital had a program called the Penn-Wazee program. Penn-Wazee standing for pen, watch, and scissors, the three things that nurses should always carry. It was intended for young women who wanted to go into nursing or possibly an allied healthcare field, and allowed us to job shadow through each of the departments in the hospital. I learned very quickly that I was not cut out for nursing. I was somewhat interested in physical therapy. One evening when I was doing my emergency room month, I was talking with the ER physician, and he came out and asked, "Why don't you want to go to medical school?" Well, it never occurred to me that women could do such a thing. So I planted a seed that was further nourished by my mentors at college, where they kept asking me the same thing: why don't you go to medical school? So after graduation from Northwestern University, I went to medical school at the University of Illinois in Chicago, where during my senior year, I did an elective in dermatology and fell in love with the field. After my internship in internal medicine in Chicago, I was fortunate enough to match to a very competitive dermatology residency in Louisville. And after I completed that residency, my husband and I decided we wanted to settle down and raise a family and work in a small town in the Midwest, preferably with a college, and we fell in love with Crawfordsville. This community has been so gracious and supportive of my practice and of my family, and it's just been a pleasure to work alongside such wonderful people for 31 years. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for this celebration in honor of Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite.
Hi, my name's Erica Caesar Taylor. When I was in Montgomery County, my name was Erica Whitehead. I'm currently a registered nurse and I work at Ascension St. Vincent in Indianapolis, Indiana. I currently am the Director of Transplant Services as well as Mechanical Circulatory Support, Pulmonary Hypertension, as well as Cardiopulmonary Rehab at Ascension St. Vincent Hospital. I graduated from Ball State University with a Bachelor of Science in Exercise Physiology, and then I moved to get my associate degree in nursing from IUPUI, and then continued on to obtain my master's degree at IUPUI in nursing education as well. My history and my pathway as a nurse was I began my nursing career in the critical care unit at Ascension St. Vincent, and I was a critical care nurse in the cardiothoracic vascular transplant unit there. I then later became a supervisor and then a manager, and then moved into my role as director of transplant about 4.5 years ago. My roots in Montgomery County, I was born and raised in Montgomery County, so a lot of my nursing career and my background and what drove me to be a nurse started in Montgomery County. I remember being inspired by my school nurse, Carol Holman. I was also inspired by one of my dear friends' mothers, Linda Norris, as well as my school counselor, Sherry Harris, who encouraged me to pursue a degree in nursing. It was later, as I turned into a teenager and became a patient myself, that one of my bedside caregivers by the name of Rose, I'll never know her last name, but she ultimately inspired me to move into the field of nursing. So as you can see, my nursing career has been inspired all by women, which brings me to Dr. Holloway Wilhite, which I am grateful and thankful for her bravery and her courage as she led the way for women into the field of medicine. So I'm excited to be a part of this project, and I'm grateful and thankful. Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Jenny Seibert and I am a psychiatrist. I was raised in Crawfordsville and graduated from Crawfordsville High School, after which I went to Tulane University, where I got my Bachelor of Arts degree in Spanish and my Bachelor of Science in Cell Molecular Biology. And it was at that point that I was thinking more seriously about a career in medicine, though I wasn't sure what form that would take. I always knew that I was interested in science, and then found myself drawn to community service. And then by the time I got to medical school at the University of Chicago, I started thinking more along the lines of internal medicine, though I started to work with patients who had schizophrenia and depression, and found myself more connected and felt like that work was something I was suited to and felt meaningful to me. So I finished at University of Chicago and then went on to residency and chief residency at the University of Michigan, where I spent 1 year then as faculty in the outpatient clinic. Before then, a very brief time in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I worked at a VA clinic, seeing outpatients there. And then for the last 10 years, I've been in Seattle, Washington, where I've on and off worked for the University of Washington in the inpatient psychiatry unit. I was so lucky along the way to have lots of great female role models in science and in medicine, starting with my mom, pharmacist rather, and then many professors at Tulane, lots of teachers at Crawfordsville High School, including Dr. Hudson, Ms. Britton, Ms. Reinert. People made me feel supported in pursuing whatever field I wanted along the way, and I'm so fortunate to the people who really started paving that way, like Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite. So thank you for including me in this, and best of luck to everyone.
Hi, I'm Krista Santos, formerly Krista Inskeep, and I'm a pediatrician. I'm a product of Indiana Public Schools. I graduated from Crawfordsville High School in 1994 and then went on to Indiana University for undergrad and to the Indiana University School of Medicine. I graduated from medical school in 2002, and then I moved to Columbus, Ohio to do my pediatrics residency at what was then called Columbus Children's Hospital. I finished in 2005 and moved back to Indianapolis to join a small private pediatrics practice owned by 2 other female physicians called Step by Step Pediatrics, and I've been practicing there now for 15 years. As a child and adolescent, I had several medical problems that required me to see different doctors, each of whom had his or her own approach to talking to patients and their families. As a patient, I found some of those approaches to be better than others, and I started to think about becoming a pediatrician myself, thinking that I might be able to develop an approach to kids that they would appreciate, since I had come from being a child and a teenager who had been a patient in more doctor's visits than most have. Then when I graduated from high school, my dad gave me a piece of advice about my career selection. He told me to choose a career in which, if I didn't show up one day, it would matter to someone other than my boss. There are a lot of careers in which that is certainly true, but I knew that pediatrics was among them. And so I headed off to college with a plan to major in biology and go on to medical school. Medical school and residency were tough. There were obvious intellectual challenges of learning, retaining, and processing so much information, physical challenges of fatigue and sometimes struggling to find enough time for exercise or healthy diet, and the emotional challenges of becoming attached to patients who sometimes had poor outcomes. In all of those challenges, I really never felt that being female presented an obstacle of its own. I never felt that any more or less of me was expected because of my gender, and I never felt I was denied any opportunities for growth or education. Part of that may have been due to the field of medicine that I studied. Currently, about 70% of incoming pediatrics residents are female. So my colleagues who are in medical specialties that are still dominated by men may have had different experiences as women in medicine than I did. It is certainly true that the women who came before me had different experiences as women in medicine. Pioneers like Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite faced enormous challenges and overcame difficult obstacles without the benefit of a community of female physicians like we have today. I love my job. I love my patients. I love talking to their families about caring for them. I love that after 15 years, I continue to learn and be challenged every day. I'm indebted to the women who cleared this path for me and am grateful every day for the privilege of being a pediatrician.
Hello, my name is Elisha Lamar, previously Elisha Largent. I am honored to be part of the project that is recognizing and honoring Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite and her contribution to the medical community, especially in Crawfordsville. I am a registered nurse and a nurse practitioner. I've been an RN for 19 years and a nurse practitioner for 12. I graduated from Crawfordsville High School in 1996. Then I went to St. Elizabeth School of Nursing and got my diploma in nursing in 2001, my bachelor's in nursing in 2002 from St. Joseph College in Rensselaer, Indiana, and then my master's degree in 2008 from IU School of Nursing in Indianapolis. I started my career in labor and delivery and bereavement for families who have lost babies. I have taught at college, the college level in nursing for years. I have been an educator, a clinical educator for years, and most recently worked in hospice caring for families of folks who are dying, and also quality in education. Healthcare is my passion. I knew it from a very young age. I believe that's why I was put on this earth, is to care for other people and help them to feel in their soul that they have someone that cares about them and wants to make a difference in their life. I used to take care of my parents when I was young, and they would always call me, Dr. Elisha, that type of thing. And I decided as the years went along, I would check out anatomy books from the library and that type of thing. I was just enamored with health and caring for others. I decided I wanted to be a nurse when I got into high school, and my parents just encouraged me all the way, and I thank them for that. I just, as a nurse, just want everybody to feel like they have someone, no matter what they're going through, that cares for them and loves them. And really, that's my goal in healthcare. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dr. Abigail Donnelly. I'm a board-certified dermatologist and a native of Crawfordsville, Indiana. I'm so happy to be a part of this project honoring Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite. I'm a graduate of Crawfordsville High School, class of 2000, and after that I went to Duke University and got my bachelor's degree from there in 2004. I took a couple of years to do basic science research before I started my medical career, and I graduated from Indiana University School of Medicine with my MD in 2010. I then spent 4 years at the Mayo Clinic doing my internship and residency in dermatology. Practiced in California for a few years, and I'm back home in Indiana here practicing in Carmel with Forefront Dermatology. I have such gratitude for the pioneering women like Dr. Wilhite, who were brave enough to become physicians when women weren't really welcome in the anatomy lab. Dr. Wilhite, after she completed her medical degree, came back to Indiana and really probably wasn't supported by her community of physicians. The American Medical Association did not acknowledge female physicians until 1876, which is 20 years after she had started practicing in Indiana. I like to think that that was probably really tough. The art of medicine is challenging, and she probably felt lonely and a bit isolated being on her own. But she thrived. Not only did she take care of patients in her own exam rooms and hospitals, but she was a major advocate for the advancement of women's rights. She was a philanthropist. She was a poet. She made a life for herself, really without any framework to build it upon. And she chartered new territory for women in medicine. Female physicians now make up 36% of the workforce, and I feel really privileged to serve my community as a doctor, thanks to the pathways that people like Dr. Wilhite blazed 150 years ago. I cannot wait to see where we're at in the next 150 years.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Strickland, and I'm a pediatric nurse practitioner. I've had the opportunity to work in inpatient pediatric hematology oncology and as a pediatric primary care provider. I graduated from Crawfordsville High School in 2003. I then went on to Indiana Wesleyan University, where I earned my bachelor's degree in nursing. While working at Riley Hospital for Children, I earned my master's degree from IU. Growing up, my dream was to become a pediatric oncologist. I fell in love with a series of books that had captivating stories of children overcoming great obstacles and the women that helped them to do that. These women's roles were inspiring, that of doctors, nurses, lawyers, and social workers. Over the years, my dream shifted a little to becoming a pediatric nurse practitioner. I truly love my job, and it's a privilege to care for others. I have no doubt Dr. Holloway Wilhite felt the exact same way. What a joy and honor it is to be considered a small part of her distinguished legacy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Whitney Whistler. I'm a small animal veterinarian in Sullivan, Indiana. And I am a 2002 graduate of Crawfordsville High School, and I attended Purdue University for veterinary medicine, and I spent 3 years there for undergraduate work, and then 4 years there for veterinary school, and I graduated from Purdue in 2009. In my career, I have worked in many different facets of veterinary medicine. I started as a large animal veterinarian back in 2002, did that for a few years, and then ended up mostly small animal. And then about 2 years ago, went into the research industry side of veterinary medicine and stayed there for about a year, and came back to general practice. I have been doing small animal general practice for the last few years. But currently, back in the small animal world, trying to navigate what we have now as COVID and curbside veterinary medicine and figuring all that out. It's been definitely interesting. I was inspired to enter the medical field by actually a prestige colleague of mine, Dr. Michael, who practiced small animal medicine in my community for many, many years. He graduated from Purdue University in 1964, so one of the very first veterinary classes, and then practiced for 40 years until he passed away in 2017. He was also mayor of our town in Crawfordsville from 1988 to 2000, and just a genuinely awesome, amazing colleague. He was always humble, giving, selfless, and actively involved in many aspects of the community and charitable organizations. And he was just always encouraging to me to achieve anything that I put my mind to. And never once looked at me differently because I was a woman. He never once thought that that was even weird to be going into veterinary medicine as a woman. He thought that whatever you put your mind to, you were capable of. And he was always encouraging me to fight for that and to study hard and to practice hard. And even though it was a field that was predominantly dominated by mostly men up until the 1980s, I admired his compassion that he had. I admired how he handled challenges that he faced. I admired how he treated all of his clients equally, men, women, race, color, age, background. And I admired his constant positivity. Those are all attributes I try to instill in my team and display for my team now. The field of veterinary medicine has drastically changed over the last 20 years. Predominantly it was mostly men up until the 1980s. Almost 70% graduating classes were male. And then today with almost 76% of graduating classes being female. But we still as women veterinarians deal with gender bias every day. There's few women that reach high levels of positions compared to men in our field. We often see clients asking for male veterinarians and sometimes perceive female veterinarians as less intellectual or physically not as capable as males, especially in large animal medicine. We also tend to not be taken as seriously sometimes in our careers if we choose to also have families and be career moms. And that's something that I personally have seen and struggled with, that a lot of times you don't get promotions or don't get higher up positions because you want to be a mom and have a career and maybe take a day off here and there. That's something that we as moms and women struggle with in the veterinary career and has made things sometimes hard for us. But despite all of this, our career is so fulfilling and rewarding, and we as women have brought so much compassion and hard work to the field. Women are inherently good veterinarians, and the number of women in veterinary science is booming, and that's for good reasons. We are so thankful for women like Dr. Wilhite, who have paved the way for us to practice veterinary medicine and medicine of all kinds. We are so privileged to have the opportunities that we do today as women, and because of people like her, we have those opportunities today. So thank you very, very much to Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tyler Bretto. I'm a family doctor and health services researcher. In my career, I've had 2 jobs since graduating residency and fellowship. First, I took a tenure-track position at UT Health San Antonio. The majority of my time there was spent doing grant-funded research. My research focus is on access to maternity care, which means both physical or geographic access, but also social access, economic access, so really access in the broadest sense of the word. Missing full scope family medicine, I moved on to my current job as a full scope family physician at a community health center outside of Seattle. I work with predominantly Spanish speaking and underserved patients. I spend some of my time still working on my research and some time also as a core faculty member of a family medicine residency. I feel really lucky to have found a nice balance between providing, studying, and teaching full scope family medicine. I'm a graduate of Crawfordsville High School. I went to Grinnell College in Iowa and then to Michigan State University for medical school. I graduated from medical school in 2013 and then with my master in public health in 2019. As many people watching this know, I do not come from a medical family. I went to college hoping it would lead to a PhD in some science, and then I took a poli-sci class on disease, death, and world politics, which really ultimately inspired me to pursue a career in medicine. There were and are barriers since I'm female. I've not noted official barriers. They're much more covert today. I could give many examples of seemingly small transgressions I experience as a woman. Women in medicine are not so unusual as we were when Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite became Indiana's first female to be a licensed physician, though we still have a lot of work to do towards equality. I'm really excited about this project to honor Dr. Wilhite. The breadth of her impact and sustained perseverance make her truly a person to emulate. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Lauren Mummert Olivanya, and I am a board-certified pediatric dentist. I work in South Bend for a group where I perform the full mouth reconstruction cases in both area hospitals. I graduated from Crawfordsville High School in 2005, then the University of Notre Dame in 2009. In 2013, I completed a residency program in pediatric dentistry at Riley Hospital for Children, where I served as chief resident. My journey to becoming a pediatric dentist started in high school. I volunteered at a Boys and Girls Club of Montgomery County party that was aimed at encouraging young girls to become achievers. My dentist, Dr. Janet Rucker, was also volunteering at that event, and I really admired what she was doing in our community. I then shadowed her and realized I also really admired what she did professionally. So I decided to become a dentist and later a pediatric dentist. During the 10 years of education and training after high school, my family, my female classmates, and my female co-residents encouraged me and helped me to succeed and to achieve my goals so that I could become like the women that I admire professionally. It is women like Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite, who served as pioneers in the medical field as women, who paved the way and allowed for women like me to get to become dentists. And I'm so thankful and honored to get to participate in a program that honors such an extraordinary woman.
Hello, I'm Liz Combs and I'm a nurse. In my career, I've worked in Indiana and Kansas in multiple specialty ICUs and a handful of specialty clinics. I graduated from Crawfordsville High School. I attended Indiana University. I graduated with the class of 2011. And I've done advanced work in specialty ICUs. I was inspired to become a nurse after watching my Aunt Julie blaze the path before me. I was always eager to emulate her drive, compassion, and strength. It is truly a privilege to be a part of the project to honor Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite. It is so important to me to honor the women who did what no one thought was possible at the time. She inspires me to push my career further even 150 years later.
Hi, I'm Dr. Anastasia Yee. I grew up here in Crawfordsville, Indiana. I'm a family medicine physician practicing here in Crawfordsville, Indiana at Valley Professionals Community Health Center. I attended Hose Elementary School, Tuttle Middle School, and graduated in 2007 from Crawfordsville High School. I went to Indiana University in Bloomington to get my degrees in chemistry and Spanish, and then went to medical school and residency in Lewisburg, West Virginia at the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. I've wanted to be a doctor since I was 3 years old. It's been my dream to return here to Crawfordsville to help serve the underserved populations where I grew up and give back to the community that gave me so much. I'm an Eli Lilly Scholar and a National Health Service Corps Scholar. Serving those that need it most is what's important to me. I'm proud to honor Dr. Wilhite today, and I'm honored to be a part of this project. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Savannah Nog. I'm a registered nurse. I started my nursing career as an LPN in 2011 at a local nursing home. I spent the first 4 years as a nurse gaining experience to work towards my ultimate goal, being a labor and delivery nurse. I landed my dream position in 2015 working in labor and delivery at Methodist. I graduated from Crawfordsville High School in 2008 and attended Ivy Tech for both my RN and LPN degrees. I received my BSN from IU Kokomo in 2015. As long as I can remember, I wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to help mamas and babies. I never considered that staying in Crawfordsville, living at home with my parents, and attending community college would be how I made my dream come true. After financial aid falling through and not being able to attend my first choice school, I found myself here in Crawfordsville starting my college education. I consider myself extremely lucky that Ivy Tech had just opened a location here in town. This allowed me to sign up for classes just weeks before they began and stay at home with my parents. My mom was always my #1 supporter and never let me believe I would be anything other than a wonderful nurse. I'm delighted to be a part of this project to honor Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Leach, and I'm an emergency medicine physician. I currently work in Salt Lake City, Utah with a group called Utah Emergency Physicians. I work at 5 different emergency departments throughout the Salt Lake Valley, taking care of patients with emergent medical conditions. I graduated from Crawfordsville High School in 2010 and then went on to Colorado State University for my undergrad. I then went to IU School of Medicine and obtained my medical degree in 2017. I then completed residency training at the University of Utah Health in emergency medicine. Growing up in Crawfordsville as the daughter of a family medicine physician, I was always interested in medicine, and as a result of watching my dad, was inspired to go into the field. During my time at undergrad, that interest was further solidified, and I made the decision to go to medical school. While in medical school, I was involved in a women in medicine mentoring group, and there I was so inspired by this amazing group of female leaders and physicians. I feel very honored and fortunate to have had many great female physician mentors along the way, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this project to honor Dr. Mary Holloway Wilhite.
Hi, my name is Megan Leach. I am a physician assistant or PA. I have previously worked at Hendricks Regional Health in Danville, Indiana in the emergency department, and I currently work at Community Hospital South in a surgical role. I am a 2012 graduate of Crawfordsville High School, and then I went on to Butler University for both my undergraduate degree and my master's degree for PA studies, which I finished in 2017. I have been really blessed to have awesome female medical mentors in my life from a really young age. My mom was a family practice nurse practitioner. She's retired now, but was a huge influence on my decision to go into medicine, and not for anything specific, but more because I saw the way she cared about her patients, the differences that she made in people's lives. Just seeing her interact with people in the community, I knew that what she did was important and was really special, and it was always something that really interested me. I was also just so lucky to have awesome women in science around me in high school, the opportunity to take AP science and math classes led by female teachers who were so smart and so encouraging and influential in my interest in STEM. And then on at Butler, where I had wonderful female professors and mentors in the field, has just been really special, not to mention a sister who works as an emergency medicine physician. So women in science has always been has just surrounded me. And half of that is growing up in Crawfordsville in an awesome environment where that was possible and was just the reality. And it never felt like it wasn't something I could do because I was female. So thanks for the opportunity to participate in this project. It's really awesome. And I'm looking forward to hearing everybody else's stories about women in medicine from Montgomery County. It's a cool place to have grown up. And I consider it influential because of all of the powerful women who encouraged me that I could do whatever I wanted to do, whether they were science people or not. So thanks to all of those people. I am where I am today because of that.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Howland. I'm a third-year medical student at the University of Michigan Medical School.
my career in medicine has not really begun beyond medical school. I attended Crawfordsville High School and then Pomona College. And after college, I was a health consultant for a couple of years and then decided to pursue a career in medicine. So I did a post-baccalaureate degree to get my pre-medical classes and then found my way to medical school. In terms of being a woman in medicine, I received a phenomenal education in math and science at Crawfordsville High School and the Crawfordsville schools in general, and I went to college thinking that I wanted to be a physician. But when I got to college, I was quickly intimidated by the sciences, and I think it's very easy for women to become intimidated by math and science. And I decided that I just wasn't good enough, I wasn't smart enough to become a physician, so I instead studied public policy and economics. And I don't regret the career that I had and the things that I learned along the way, but I wish that my younger self had realized the potential that I had and not had become so quickly dissuaded with the career that I could have had so early on. In other things, in thinking about a career within medicine, I've often been told that as a woman, I should find a career that has a good work-life balance and that will allow me to spend time with children and to have children in residency. And while I think that it's true, I obviously want to have a good work-life balance as a physician, it's not something that I hear my male classmates being told. It's something that I'm able to shake off and continue to focus on what I want in the future, but it's frustrating nonetheless. The exciting thing is that I'm part of a 65% female class, and I get to work with phenomenal female physicians all the time, so I think it's just a really exciting time to be a woman in medicine. And I'm really honored to be part of this project and to think about all the progress that we've made over time. Thank you.